Hello, everyone, and welcome to another insightful episode of the Resilient Immigrant Knowledge is Power series. And thank you all so much for joining. At Resilient Immigrant, our mission is to help immigrants thrive, and we do this by providing the tools, the resources, and the information to support immigrants on their journey. Our topic for today is overcoming job market challenges, and we're going to be discussing practical solutions for immigrants. And today I have four amazing panelists on the call with me. And I'm going to turn it over to them to introduce themselves because they're going to do it better than I will. So, starting out with Kyle.
Okay. First off, thank you very much for having me today. I've been really looking forward to this. My name is Kyle Smith, and I am founder and CEO of HR Kyle. We are your guide through the world of work. So we work with organizations as well as individuals to help them navigate the challenges that they face, whether it's obtaining employment, being successful in that employment, and really making the most of their careers.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We're glad to have you here, Kyle. I'll pass it over to Sami.
Hello, everybody. I am Sumi. I'm a career transition coach based in London, and I specialize in helping multicultural immigrants and individuals navigate their paths in their career and in life. I help especially to help them to align their lives and their identity to their career as well. And I have got a decade of experience in managerial roles in corporate, predominantly in tech and data. So I'm well familiar with the landscape too. And it's a privilege to be here today.
Awesome. Thank you, Sami. We're glad to have you. All right, Alicia.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Alicia Brown. I am an employee relations, career, and leadership development consultant. I pretty much aid women veterans and transition the military to better careers after the uniform. And it is a pleasure to be amongst you all today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alicia. We're glad to have you. All right, Patrice.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Patrice Lindo. I am the Career Nomad, CEO and founder of a career pivot coaching, I'm going to say, safe place for people to come. A lot of times we find that, regardless of whether we're transitioning from location to location or career to career, our journeys are very different. And especially when you add the layer of being an immigrant, there are just some cultural nuances that we have to make sure we take into consideration. As a I'm going to say a first line immigrant. My parents are from Jamaica. I look forward to working with you guys as we navigate what this looks like as we're developing the resilience needed to get through transitions just like these. They're huge, and we have to give them the honor that they deserve.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Patrice. It's a pleasure to have you here. All right. So, without further ado, we're going to jump right into our conversation of overcoming job market challenges. And, I want to start off by just talking about the recent job market situation right now. A lot of organizations, especially in the US, have gone through mass layoffs. Like, I'm talking to people who are saying, I just lost my job. My company is planning to do a mass layoff. I'm scared. I'm concerned. Am I going to be saved? All of these things are happening, and it's leaving a lot of people jobless, afraid, clueless. There's a lot of tension. And it's happening towards the end of the year, which is not a very great time to not be in a job. So, I first of all want to understand what is really happening. You guys are experts in the field. What is happening right now? Why are so many companies doing layoffs? What is going on?
I could jump in. In my 9 to 5, I work for a professional services firm, and we are seeing a lot of clients before even the election pulling back, trimming, not knowing in anticipation of what their numbers are going to look like. And it's unfortunate to say, but a lot of the companies are really focused on the bottom line, not always keeping the people of the bottom line front and center. And so a lot of the work that we do is to, I'm going to say, reacclimate our clients to remembering that the people, processes, and technology is what makes them or helps them to achieve that bottom line. And a diverse set of people is what helps them to do that. So what we really do is instill resilience, not only within the clients that we're working with, but also the people that are impacted by whatever changes that are happening. So whether it's the implementation of a new technology, whether it's unforeseen layoffs, whether it's retooling, reskilling, and that sort of thing, we bring the human element, I should say, back into the equation, because with the pressures of, getting that bottom line, sometimes we get lost in the midst of that. And so we really just encourage that resilience and how we can retool what they need to do into innovation, into creating a safe space for all employees, into really focusing on what that looks like with the network of people or clients that are being, I'm going to say, targeted, and also being able to show where you've been able to create impact and create results that really impact the bottom line. So just pulling back that human element in has been really important, because in times like this, we forget, right? And our clients do as well.
Yeah.
Vivian, excuse me, I'll add to that. I think what we're beginning to see is over the past year, especially, we've seen worldwide, not just in the US, but an extreme increase in prices, right? We're all experiencing that. And what we've started to see here in the third and fourth quarters is a bit of a dial back on those pricing increases. Well, as a result, we're now seeing some market reestablishing. So where we were staffing up heavy during these price increases, we're now seeing the market start to level back out. And as a result, revenues are starting to fall back a little bit. And quite frankly, it becomes a business proposition whereby businesses can't afford to keep up with those salaries that they've been paying over the past year or so, again, because prices were up higher. So it's really just a market readjustment right now. I want to be optimistic about it, that I think after we get through this fourth quarter and we start to head into the first quarter of 25, I think we're going to see a lot more positions opening up, because we're already seeing some optimism in just some of the markets, Dow Jones and so on, to where organizations are optimistically looking at 2025 and they're seeing some growth opportunities. So I think right now we're seeing a downturn with staffing because there's a bit of a right sizing. But as we look into 2025 and it becomes more optimistic, I think we're going to see those individuals who have been looking for work to begin to obtain employment as a result.
And if I could add, I'm sorry, if I could add a different perspective, coming from a labor and employee relations background, I want to say that the trend that I have been noticing, not just here in the last quarter, but this has been in existence for, I would say, the last 2, maybe 3 years. We're talking post-COVID, right? I've been seeing a lot of contention between companies and labor unions. And because of this, a lot of employees are pushed to the gamut of where they need to decide of whether or not to be a unionized, organization, or whether or not they want to maintain their job without the union. And so with that, it forces now the company itself to determine whether or not we need these positions. Okay. If I don't need this position, that they're trying to make a part of a union, then we're going to downsize. And so I have been seeing a lot of that happen. And in all honesty, it is a legal action that management can take, and they can say, hey, we no longer have a need for this because of supply and demand. And so now your job is no longer needed here at this location. So here's your letter, you got to go find you another position. So that's the trend that I have been seeing just from a labor standpoint, that we need to try to work with each other to see the better side of how a labor union can be beneficial for these companies, but also to protect employees. And so if you look at it from that standpoint and you say, where could we be within the next couple of months? Well, that's kind of up in the air, but that's just the nature of the beast right now that I'm seeing from a labor and employee relations standpoint of what's contributing to the downsizing and the layoffs.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
it's really interesting to learn about the global perspective that you guys are talking about, in the US. And also, I think it really echoes with, sentiment that you've got in the UK as well. The unemployment rates are staying, with us post-COVID as well. I think there's been a bit of a bubble since COVID, but that's really gone down. And there's really increased competition globally. So people are not just hiring people from the UK, but actually they're hiring people globally. And there's so many more opportunities for remote work as well. So I think it's fair to say that employers are demanding more. And as employees, it's very difficult to fight competition sometimes. And I think, given that we're talking about immigrants in this particular context, that I think adds to the pressure that immigrants face as well. And I think it's also worth bearing in mind that I think employers are asking for more specific things as well in interviews now. So it's very, very interesting to see how that may cause a bit of a difference to maybe a few years ago, where transferable skills are always the primary things that employers look for, but now they're really demanding, for example, specific skills around technology and AI. And I think that goes to show in the labor market as well.
Beautiful. So all of you mentioned things that I've been thinking, but I know that people who reach out to me about this concern, this first thing they have at the top of their mind is that their skills are no longer needed. AI is taking over our jobs. Organizations are having this global economic headwinds because they're not able to afford the rates of individuals in the country, and so they take it offshore. They take it to countries that have a lower or cheaper employment rate, right? So that's also happening. And then you also have consumer behavior changing in different industries.
Yep.
Marketing, advertising, what it was 5 years ago is no longer what it is today, right? It's changing so much. Right now, you have people on social media who are influencers. You don't need an entire marketing, advertising agency to do things for you, right? This is getting people out of jobs, and that's the reality of it. Okay, so there are different factors. It's not just one. So I love each person's perspective. So now that takes me to the next question of people who have been impacted by layoffs, people who are finding themselves in these situations. What do they do? How do they respond to this challenge, this, the current state of the job market? What do they do?
Well, I'll chime in here first on this one. This is the primary audience that I work with. So I offer out placement services as well as individuals who've been impacted by a layoff. So that's a big part of my clientele. And what we talk about is, refining down your offering. So what do you have to offer to those employers so that it's measurable, so that it shows impact? We cut through a lot of the fluff, because ultimately what employers are looking for are individuals who are going to come in and quickly make an impact in the organization. So that's part of what we focus on. Another big part that I think still gets overlooked quite a bit is this power of networking. And even if you're an immigrant, there's so much power in that networking. And don't underestimate the fact that there are people such as those of us on this call who are going to advocate for you. And when I mean advocate, I mean champion for you. Get out there and speak up for you and be your champion to their network. And I can guarantee you, everybody on this call, that's exactly the things that we enjoy doing. If we have someone that we're working with, we love to speak up on their behalf and tell a potential employer what they're capable of. So for those that are listening, sharpen up your resume, demonstrate that you have value and that you can impact the bottom line, and you can do that quickly, and really, really hammer away at that network and make your connections, because there are plenty of people out there that, such as myself and my panelists here, that are going to advocate for you as an immigrant, because we want to see you succeed, because we all win when you do.
Absolutely.
I want to add just a little bit to that. It won't be much, but when you talk about and mention, Kyle, the resume, I recently had a client who was of a different nationality, and their biggest frustration was trying to figure out what to include in their resume, because that is the very first impression that is given of an individual when they're applying for these positions. And so here's what I tell them: what is your passion? I don't care if you're an immigrant or not. We all should have a passion, something that we're interested in. And that's where you focus. And that's how you can build a marketable and tailored resume, and not something I call a kitchen sink resume that has a little bit of everything in it. And so that way you can properly identify what it is you bring to the table. So I'm just going to advise immigrants of this day: figure it out what it is you love to do and go for it, and be ready to shine in black and white.
Can I double click into that? Now,
Okay.
this is my consultant hat for a quick second. Do not use words, I would say, like passion, right? Depending on the types of jobs, like do it, like embody it. But you also have to almost like they would say, like a shirt is a shirt is a shirt. But is it a
Yeah.
t-shirt? Is it a tuxedo shirt? Is it a shirt dress? In other words, like Alicia was saying, match what's being asked for. There's not going to be a lot of, oh, they mean this. Like if
Right.
they have 10 skills, make sure that you have explicitly said you have these skills. And it doesn't mean you have to have all 10, but the ones you do have, you have to make that connection, like very elementarily visible. So if they're looking for someone that has, HC cloud development, but you have AWS, don't put AWS and they're going to think cloud development is cloud development. If they're looking for HC cloud development, and you have that, put that.
Yeah.
So like you said, that tailored resume, where sometimes people get weary. I see the post where people are like, I've sent 10,000 resumes and I have gotten 2 calls back. And those are numbers, are real numbers. But I would also say, also take a step back, because people are weary. I get it. But it will require you being the purple unicorn in a sea of white horses, no pun intended, to be able to even get you to the callback, let alone get the job. And so that rebranding is going to be required. So if you think of yourself less as just one person, but like a prism, right? So what face, in a good way, do you need to show? So like there's some element, for example, in my background of teaching, of healthcare, of sales, of consulting. Well, today you need a career coach, right? I don't need to show up as a teacher, because a teacher is not going to be helpful in this conversation, if that makes sense.
Right.
You can pull in those skills, but you definitely have to show up, it like Sami had said, with what they're looking for, precisely what they're looking for. Because even if they read into it, then they'll say, oh, well, she didn't read the description. She didn't pay attention to what we were asking for. She doesn't have the critical thinking that will be needed in the moment for what is needed. So there's just a lot of, I'm going to say, said and unsaid, which sometimes is lost in that, I'm going to say, cultural ignorance sometimes, right? Because people don't know. People don't know, right? We've gone to school to be an engineer, so you show up as an engineer, for example. But sometimes you need to show up as another side to be able to get the opportunities that you're looking for, which we typically have. We just don't always feel empowered to do so.
Yeah, wholeheartedly agree, actually, Patrice. I think relevance, value, as Carl was saying as well, that
Mhm.
energy, perhaps as
Mhm.
Alicia's saying. And also, I think, do not underestimate your potential,
Mhm.
because we all have the ability to learn. And in a
Mhm.
climate as such, actually, this presents a lot of opportunities, because you're not the only one who's being laid off. And
That's right.
actually, if we could demonstrate that we could learn, we could upskill to the relevant
Mhm.
skills that employers are asking for,
Mhm.
that gives us the advantage, right?
Mhm.
And I think, when we could do that, that demonstrates that, yes, I could add value to the company. And this
Mhm.
could be soft skills, this could be, really hard skills as well, but
Mhm.
anything that really gives the company
Mhm.
to get to know you more, and also
Mhm.
get to know that, yes, you could deliver what they ask for as well. So that's my
Oh,
2 cents.
one last thing, use AI. AI is your
Yeah.
friend. If you've learned how to do one thing and you're not sure how it connects to the other, whatever your choice is, right? Pick your poison, whether Chat GPT, Copilot, whatever, be like, how can I present myself using these skills in a way that is relevant and connects the dots for my resume? Like, there's no need for us to reinvent the wheel. I know people have a lot of different ideas about AI, but if nothing else, it's an accelerator to provoke thought. And it's not a lift and shift, as in just take exactly what it says, but it's a way for you to really begin that thought process and take some of the initial heaviness of what that I'm going to say repositioning yourself looks like. So just food for thought.
Okay. So we've said a couple of things, right? I've heard, how do you present yourself? What does your resume look like? I've heard, if you don't know how to present yourself in the best light, use AI. You've also mentioned networking, right? Network with people, put yourself out there, connect. All of this are great, right? But let's really go down into the real, the core concerns, right? The discrimination that immigrants face. A lot of immigrants, they have amazing skills. They're educated, but because they have a name
Mhm.
that doesn't sound American or European, they're discriminated. Their resume is not looked at twice,
Yeah.
or their education is not one that is recognized from the US or from the UK, or how do those individuals navigate those challenges? How do they go past the discrimination, especially when presenting themselves on their resume? Because people have come to me saying, should I change my name? Should I take off the name of my university or my college? What should I do, because I don't want to be discriminated? And again, I will tell you guys for free, I have seen job descriptions from recruiters where they have said no Nigerians,
Mhm.
no Cameroonians.
Mhm.
Yes, this is
And
real life
age is
story.
another one that they'll do.
Yes, this is all real. I'm not
Real
making this stuff
talk.
up. Yes, it's real.
Mhm.
So, how do people navigate the situation, still wanting to be honest and true to themselves, wanting to be their authentic selves? How do they navigate these things when you have people and this real situations happening?
I don't think there's one answer, but Kyle hit the nail on the head, where he said, "Network like hell." You didn't say
Yep.
network like hell, but network, because the referral basis,
Yep.
right, can help to. I'm not gonna say skipped, but can help to alleviate some of that pressure. It's not the answer, right? But if
Yep.
you network with the right, well, not right, with good people that can say your name in rooms that you're not in, that
Yep.
can be one of the ways to navigate through and around. It's not a silver bullet, but your referral network, your network of people, can make the job search, I'm going to say, journey better. Not 100% bulletproof, but
Yep.
it can make it better. So network.
I think for me, I'm gonna throw in. 'Cause I know y'all saw my face, right? Because I have never
Yeah.
heard of that. Keeping in mind that the majority, not the majority, all of my HR background has come from the federal government level. Okay. And so I wished that the private sector operated in such the manner that the federal government does, wherein it provides certain protections for applicants. In the federal government, if an applicant were to feel as though they were discriminated against, there are certain protections, i.e., they can file certain claims or of discrimination. And as an applicant, they have this right to do so. So what I would wholeheartedly recommend in this type of situation is to, especially with the one that you just identified, where there are very clear in stating no Asians, no one of a certain background. I would recommend for that applicant to go back to that company and ask, what is the bona fide occupational reason
Yeah.
in which you're highlighting someone of a certain background cannot apply for this position? I feel as though that is the way in which individuals need to start addressing clear and transparent discrimination. Stop letting it go and just say, oh, this is how it is. No, it is absolutely incorrect. And it is not a fair treatment of all individuals. So I am very particular about these types of situations because one, applicants don't know, and two, when they become employees, they don't take full advantage of their rights because they're not being told of their rights. So this is where I'm like one of those
Yeah.
people that's, I'm so glad I have a labor and employee relations background because I study case law for a living. And I can also recommend different options for individuals in this type of scenario to take in order to address this type of discrimination.
Yeah.
I think it's probably fair to say that if it's a very blatant discrimination, there are
Yes.
absolutely some things to do with that, right? So you have the right to report, you have the right to say
Yes.
no, you have the right to investigate a bit more if you want to.
Mhm.
And interviews are always a two-way process. I think it's much harder
Yes.
if that's more of an implicit
Mhm.
prejudice.
Mhm.
And I think it really takes a bit of experience to distinguish what's more implicit and what is genuinely a prejudice.
Mhm.
And I have to say that I agree with Patrice in a way that I think the research or the networking is going to help you, because then you could perhaps get a feel of what the company culture is before you get into a job. It's not always easy.
Yep.
But by doing more research about the company, even looking on websites like Glassdoor, you could sometimes smell a little bit of, if the culture isn't right, people do talk about it.
Mhm.
So again, it's not going to work every single time. Chances are sometimes you go into an interview, you even got into the job, then you realize that discrimination happens, and that's really unfortunate. But always, think about it. It's not your fault as well. So you always have the right to report it when things aren't going right. So I guess that's my encouragement to immigrants who may be fearing, that situation they go into is discrimination.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll add to that as well, because I think, Sumi and Alicia, you bring up a good point that we have to keep front and center. When these situations happen, we've got to call them out. And if you're an advocate for that person, I've had this happen. I just had it happen 2 weeks ago. A young lady that I sent out to an employer, one of the people that interviewed her said, well, women don't typically do well on the assembly line. And I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. This is 2024. Give me a break.
Mhm.
Well, fast forward, first thing we did was we called that employer, our contact there, and said, hey, this is happening. This is absolutely wrong. This has to stop. We're happy to come in and train if you need some training on hiring, but this isn't going to happen. So Monday, she started working there. Believe it or not, she loves it there. Situation resolved. But the point being, we've got to call those situations out. They're illegal. They're unethical. And when you're an advocate for that person, you can't be afraid to speak up. And if you're the immigrant that has that happen, you have got to speak up and say, this should not be happening to me.
Can I share something though about that? And this may not be a blanket statement. I 100% agree, but I will say there's an element of like, I'm going to call it like generational boldness. So bear with me for just 1 second. So like my parents are, what is it, born in 47. I don't know whether boomers, whatever. And I'm a Generation Xer. And then my kids are whatever they are now.
Yeah.
My kids will stop you dead stop, like in this conversation, if you have said something about people differently abled, either gender, pronouns, like full stop. They're going to stop you right now. Then I will be like, well, wait. Oh, I didn't remember the pronoun. Like I think I'm more amenable, like, okay, think about the pronouns. My parents are like, listen, I don't want to rock the boat. Now, as that relates to immigrants, right? There is a layer of, yes, you have to be strong and bold, but I think culturally sometimes that is a big jump because they already feel, my experience, like lucky to be here and they just want to kind of put their heads down, do their job. So when we're telling them, be bold, go, is this discriminatory? We have to have, I'm going to say as coaches or whatever level of mentoring coaching, we have to have an understanding for that hesitancy to be so forthright, because it's very different. It's legal and they need to know their rights and they need to be educated, but there's some soft skills, right, that needs to accompany, this empowerment, because sometimes it's they just don't know what to do with it and they sit with it, right? And they're working in conditions that, like you said, Alicia, they don't realize they have the right to say, no, you can't. And they don't have the words, but also they don't have the, courage is maybe the word I'm thinking. Confidence, right. To say that. Like my parents growing up in Jamaica, like they were taught that Malcolm X and Martin Luther King were troublemakers by the Franciscans that came in to teach them. Okay, so like if they've lived their young lives and then they come to America and they're like, wait a minute, this is not what they said. There's a reckoning, but like my parents will march, but they're never gonna go to jail. Like that's just that's not how they're made up. So I just want us to make sure that we're addressing that as well, because we can give and share information, but we also have to have empathy and room to build that muscle, for people to stand up, if that makes sense.
And it makes perfectly good sense. And so I would say how I would operate that is I give options. I give a pro and I give a con. Because when I give you the advice and I give you the recommendation, it's up to you. I can't cover each and every possible outcome, but I'm going to give you a pro and I'm going to give you a con. And so I'm going to be right there with you the whole way, whichever way you want to move through it. But I feel like the confidence, it comes from working with people like us. And because we have a different way of communicating these situations to where we can talk, real relaxed, or we can talk, really, really professional. And so, we meet people where they're
they
at,
are.
because we're just very diverse like that.
That's
so
fair. That's fair.
I think that we just need to encourage more immigrants to reach out and again network, but contact someone who's in that career coaching or consulting space, so that you can figure out, what option do you have at this point. And I think that would help tremendously a lot with, just educating across the board.
100%.
Well, and I think the other point that comes out here that I hadn't thought about in a while, since just don't deal with it, but in some countries, some of the things that are illegal here are perfectly acceptable. And I think, Alicia, to your point, and Patricia as well, is that it's educating them on here's the legal ramifications of our hiring processes here as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think I like the approach of being proactive rather than reactive. So before things go wrong, let's have the awareness, let's have the cultural competency trainings, and also, make sure we have conversations with employees as well, who are from an immigrant background, because then we know what their needs are and what they're facing into. And having allies who aren't immigrants as well is so, so important. And that's coming back again to the networking piece, that we need to be standing against discrimination together. So I think that education piece is, yes, as you guys have said, is so, so going to be impactful.
Okay. So I'm hearing networking. It's like a buzzword. Networking. Let's double dive into this networking, right? Let's go into it, right? I'm an immigrant. I moved to this country maybe 12, 13 years ago. Time is going too fast. But when I came here, I struggled. I struggled to integrate. I struggled to network. I struggled socially and culturally. And I just didn't feel welcomed, right? So I would stick to the people around me, people in my church, people in my neighborhood, in fact, not neighborhood, my direct neighbors. So I lived in a subdivision, but I only used to talk to my direct neighbor, right? And so when you say network, as an immigrant, how do they position themselves? They already have this hesitation, there's this fear. What are some strategies? What are some things they should do to network effectively? Are they networking vertically? Are they networking horizontally? What does networking really mean? How do you network your way out of this, challenges? Because networking is a big thing.
Yes.
And I know we'll dive into it, but I want us to think about the unconventional ways of networking, not just LinkedIn and, going to meetups and all of that. So let's, realistically speaking, as agile coaches on this call, and I'm also an agile coach as well, career coach as well. What are some ways we can help the immigrants, right? Especially the ones who are facing the situations, and even the ones who are feeling nervous about getting laid off. What are some ways we can network effectively?
Vivian, can I just say that I resonate with your story a lot. And I came to the UK at the age of 15. I've probably a more British accent than most as well, but I still fear networking, right? It's still something that's not very natural to me. And I think my encouragement is even to speak to someone that you meet, say in the gym or in the library, one-on-one is networking, because you're extending this relationship, right? You're building this relationship that's new to you, and you're breaking out your comfort zone. So I think what I would advise people to do is always take one step at a time. Build the small relationships first. Get to know one person per week, perhaps. Set something that is achievable for yourself. And then slowly you realize that it gets easier.
Mhm.
And things like meeting somebody online for a coffee could be networking too. You don't have to be face to face, because I understand that some people will get, a bit nervous post COVID, seeing people with legs, right? It happens. And I think, just taking small steps at a time really help an immigrant to break out of the comfort zone little by little. And I think, in a year, you probably meet a lot of people, a lot more people than you think. And it doesn't have to be limited to your own culture as well. And that would be my advice.
For me, networking is not just peopling, right? It's how you show up. So for example, I'm a reader. So like I join different like social groups based on the books that I'm reading. And it could be, well, I was going to say smut, sorry, but adult books, or it could be, space books, it could be whatever now, Alicia, this is where the passions come in. Where do your passions lie, right? So I use my social, and as you said, Sami, non-human, if you call it that, connections to show up. And then I think naturally or organically kind of talk about who you are and what you do and where you live. So then it's not like, hey, I'm Patrice, please hire me. I'm looking for a job if you're ever looking for an XYZ. It's more of making that, I'm going to say, human connection. And the other thing is, you can also show up in your gift. So for example, I'd like to write. So like I would have a blog, for example, where I'm not talking to anybody. I'm just putting my gift out into the world. And that's a way of networking too, right? So it's not always human interaction in the traditional sense. It also is showing up as who you are and people organically being attracted to you.
I'm going to add, I believe that it would be beneficial for immigrants to have resources such as Resilient Immigrants, because you have now just connected 4 individuals from different walks professionally and personally that could provide that assistance that immigrants are needing coming into this country, right? So, for instance, if we have support groups that are specifically for those who are brand new to the US or whatever country it may be pertaining to, I believe that those support groups would be the initial resource for an immigrant to tap into, so that they can now say, okay, hey, we have an individual over here that does personality tests, right? What do you look like now at 36 versus what you look like at 18? What are your interests now? And then from there, we can say, okay, here's a career coach that I can put you in play with. And here's someone who specializes in resume development. And so it kind of continues from there. It's a building block system is what I call it. But it starts with groups such as this to bring individuals together so that we can also, I guess, brainstorm, if you will, because I feel like that's what we're doing right now. We're kind of brainstorming ideas to help the transition for immigrants coming to the US. And if we have that, now we have to have people to go out and talk about it. So you just gained 4 people, right, who are going to say, hey, I have, a resource that you all could tap into, and maybe this could be a starting point for you. So I believe things like this is what would help and assist immigrants with that whole transition and, being more comfortable in their skin in a new place.
Alicia, wonderful points. And I'll piggyback that a little bit. We're fortunate where we live here in Ohio, Akron, Cleveland area, that there's actually a vibrant and thriving immigrant population.
Oh, good.
And what that has created is a lot of community resources, nonprofit and so on, for immigrants to come in and acclimate, assimilate, have resources that they can tap into for job assistance and so on. So to your point, if I'm an immigrant, look around and see what resources may be available through nonprofit, through governmental agencies in your area. And, that's going to open up so many possibilities, because there are people such as myself who are volunteering in these organizations, and we're helping you find jobs and we're helping you make connections and so on. So your points, absolutely. There are a lot of resources out there. Just be on the lookout.
Right.
This is awesome. So we're not done with networking. We're not done. So now we are in the technology era, right? Everybody is online. It's very easy. You submit a resume. The next thing the recruiter is doing is typing your name on Google and looking you up. These are the realities of it. They're finding you on Instagram, on Facebook, on
That's right.
everywhere, God
Mhm.
knows where, right? How should not just immigrants at this point, right? This is everybody,
Yeah.
especially in the current state of things
Mhm.
where the job market is more competitive than ever
Mhm.
with AI now in the mix of things.
Mhm.
How should people be showing up online, whether it's social media, LinkedIn? How should they present themselves? This question is twofold. The people who are out of a job, how do
Mhm.
they show up
Ah,
for themselves,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Where it's not like they're idle.
Mhm.
Okay. So I'm
Mhm.
giving you guys ideas of what I want to hear.
Mhm. Mhm.
The second one is the people who are afraid
Mhm.
that my organization has given me some kind of heads up that we're going to get laid off or whatever.
Mhm.
How do I leverage technology, social media, and show up for myself online?
Intentionally
Yes.
create what it is that you want to see. So, one of the things that I
mm,
help people to do is think about how they have achieved recognition, and not just in rewards from work, but if you have, for example, expertise in a particular area, like you, for example, Vivian, you're doing this effort with a resilient immigrant. How much have you shared about meeting with us yesterday to make sure we're prepared, making sure you have a diverse set of people, making sure you curated, the questions that we needed to be ready to answer. Like just showing up in, hey, I'm not just a 9 to 5 doing what I do 9 to 5, but
Yep.
this is what I do elsewhere, and post and share and create the narrative for who you are. So it's not always going to be you being invited or acknowledged, let's just say first. Sometimes you have to be the one to say, hey, I'm going to put this out there. This is who I am. If, for example, you're laid off and you want a particular type of role, how can you show up demonstrating those skills and proficiency in that area, that you create the blueprint for? If someone Googles your name, they will see, your experience or your, involvement, or, different initiatives that you've been a part of. So I think
No,
create that brand that you're looking to,
yes.
get to.
I absolutely love that. And I'm going to summarize that as maximize all of your efforts, everything you're doing.
Mhm,
Show up for yourself.
Memorialize it, document it.
Yes.
mhm,
Yeah, that's actually even a takeaway for me because I don't do enough. Because for me personally, I have this fear of I don't want to come across as oversharing or as
Yep.
a show off,
Hmm.
or like tooting my own horn.
Hmm.
So,
Yep.
but I like that for people who know that they need something, they're in a place where they're looking to get a job, they're looking to network with people. If they don't do that, how are people going to find them?
Hmm.
Yep.
Hmm.
So I love that.
Hmm.
The other thing too that I think is critical with what Patrice shared is she's talking about doing this all the time. So don't wait till, oh, I need
Yeah.
a job or that's coming up. Patrice, what I heard you say too is networking and all that, that's just something you're doing as a professional, whether
Hmm.
you're employed, unemployed, looking or not.
Correct. Correct.
So
Yeah.
I want to add to that, right? I laugh because what you just stated, it forced me to create a workshop. And that workshop is called Networking with Confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And in that workshop, I I put it, when I say I like beat a dead horse with know your value
Mm-hmm.
and know your worth. And I also make sure that individuals know no one's ever going to be able to pay your full worth, right? It's
Yeah.
just not going to happen. You can't put a number on it. But mentally, you need to know what you bring to the table. And so
Mhm.
you have to take that word network and you got to break it down and make it work for you, really define it, right? So when you're looking at what it is you're bringing to the table, not only do you need to know what you bring to the table and what your capabilities are, but you got to know how to say it. Okay. And
With your
that's
chest,
right.
though.
I'm gonna give you
Yep.
the perfect example. The old Alicia, when I transitioned out of the military, I had a very hard time, just as you, Vivian. Oh, I did this. Oh, I got, prior military experience. I'm 10 years out, whatever the case may be. And I accomplished X, Y, and Z while I was in the military. I had a very hard time saying that and being confident in it because I didn't want to overshadow someone.
Yeah.
who had not been in the military. All it took was Alicia to go to 2 networking events. And by that second event, I had this individual pull me to the side and say, "You have a lot under your belt.
Yeah.
I need you to learn how to release it."
Yep.
I said, "What does that mean?" So I started going back and looking at, I get it. So now when I'm on social media, you get a different, I'm posting differently. Here's the answer to your second part: how to show up on social media confidently. You're not going to see me post my Instagram posts on LinkedIn. You know why? It's not degrading. I don't get on there doing things like that. I try to keep it very clean cut and dry and professional and all across all boards. But my audience is different on Instagram. My intent is different on Instagram than it is on LinkedIn. My Facebook page, I have a business Facebook page, but I also have a personal because that's my family and close friends. So what we talk about over here, you're not going to see on my LinkedIn because it does not serve the same purpose. And so that is the additional piece of being confident on social media is you have to know what to post, who you're targeting, and what you want people to take away from you and what you're posting on your social media. So I hope that kind of answered both questions in one breath.
Yeah, I would definitely echo what you said there, Alicia. I think it's very important to be aware of your goals and also the brand goal. So actually,
Yes.
who are you going to be on social media? And I think, different social media platforms present perhaps a different perspective of who you are. So it's being aware of what you post out there. I guess the second thing I would add is the boundaries that you set for yourself, because you don't have to be everything on social media. You don't have to post, for example, our kids' pictures or actually where you went partying, because that's irrelevant, perhaps, right?
Right.
So knowing what you post out there and setting your own boundaries would prevent you going into social media fatigue. And it's just a more sustainable way for you to show up on social media authentically yourself as well.
Yes. And Vivian, I would say too, to the last thing you stated, or one of the things you stated, not last, but yes, employers go and put your name on Google really quick. How I know? Because I'm one of them that used to do it, right? I sit at the hiring table with these hiring officials. I'm like, wait a minute, like, we got to check this person out. We got to see, what we want in this company to represent this agency. And so people need to be more cognizant of what they're putting out there because, yes, it can be a make or break situation just based upon what that one little post with your red cup and what you're writing, in black and white that could deter an employer. So they really need to be up to par with that and what they do on social media.
Yeah. But something I always say is the internet never forgets.
Never.
So anything you put out there, you need to be able to live with it. If anybody pulls it out and associates it with you, you should be okay with that. Okay. So I don't want to overbit this networking topic, but we get it. Networking is extremely important, not just how you show up, how you connect with people, how you set boundaries, how you stay authentic, your value proposition, how you confidently and intentionally present yourself to actually get connected to the people that you want to be connected with, whether vertically or horizontally. Now, the last uh, category I want us to talk about is transitioning, which is also a big thing, right? Because now, based on just the current economy, based on technology, a lot of jobs are getting obsolete, right? Whether we like it or not, technology and AI is definitely taking on more skills and making people's jobs redundant, right? It's forcing people to think outside the box. It's forcing people to think about other career opportunities, making them transition into new careers, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Change is the constant thing in life. So it's okay to change. You're not a tree. Now, how do you encourage people who are in this process of transitioning to new careers, right? What are some things you recommend? What is a good decision? When is it a good decision to transition? Some people want to go into IT because they feel like IT is the next best thing since sliced bread, right? Or because IT pays a lot of money. But I want to hear from you guys, just your different perspectives. When is it a good reason to transition, right? And then what is the right way to transition where you don't necessarily feel like now I'm going into a new career, I have to start from entry level, even if I have 20 years of work experience, right? How do you navigate those kind of situations?
I would say that it's very important to know your why, as Simon Sinek would say.
Mhm.
Right. I think there are a lot of push and pull factors when it comes to career transitions. And I help a lot of clients who go through that on a day-to-day basis. And I think it's okay to have push factors sometimes, because indeed we have to leave environments which are toxic and sometimes are very detrimental to our mental health.
Yeah.
However, knowing what pulls you is very important. So know your why in terms of perhaps for somebody who's wanting to go into tech, why is that they want to go into tech?
Yeah.
And secondly, know your strengths. Knowing your strengths is more important than knowing your weaknesses and developmental points sometimes. And I think, being able to tell a story about your strengths and actually where your passions lie and why you want to go into a career is very important. So be clear on the story that you tell yourself and others as well.
Yeah.
So I think if we're clear on these three things, it makes it easier to transition, and it convinces yourself to a certain extent, and you could be much more confident about yourself as you go into transition. And I was helping this other lady the other day. She's a European lady who wants to find a job in the UK, and she's got a decade of experience as a project manager back in her country. And she was asking me whether she wanted to apply for a junior role. And my answer was like, no, because you've got the transferable skills and you've got the strength that you could demonstrate to your employers. The only thing that's missing is your confidence. And sometimes it takes a little bit of practice to really say things out loud. It takes practice, perhaps with a career coach. It takes practice, perhaps, to say it out loud in a networking event, to really understand your own story. So the more practice you do, the more confident you become, and the better the transition will be.
Awesome.
I'm gonna go, and because you said a key word there, Sami. You said transferable skills. And here is where I see a lot of my clients kind of hesitate with. They frustrate a lot with what did I accomplish over here as an administrative assistant that will help me over here as a cook? Okay. Because they want to transition. But most importantly, I would say and use this as an example. I work with primarily women veterans who are transitioning from the military. And so I want them to be successful, such as myself, after the uniform. And what comes into play is, what transferable skill do you have that you accomplished in the military that you know that you can build on and create success? Notice I said create success, right? Because you have to create the opportunity. And so it's two things that I believe that helps people with transitioning: creating the opportunity and knowing what to utilize that you already have within you to make that opportunity successful.
I want to add something that's not as traditional. So don't kill me for saying this, but I think we need to include this. Regardless of your spiritual beliefs, right? You're going to do all the things. You're going to do your resume, you're going to do your networking, you're going to do your rebranding. But there's something alchemical that happens when you write it down. So I read just this morning in my own time of meditation, a story where Tabitha Brown, whether you like her or not, was talking about, the life that she wanted. And she was saying that, she was down on her luck. She had like $300 in the bank. And in addition to, like driving Uber and doing all these things, she sat with her husband and said, you know what? Let's write what we want. Let's just write our crazy dreams. So she had like $300 in the bank in LA, which is like no money, right? Because LA is so expensive. And she was like, you know what? I want $10,000 to pay down my bills. And she wrote it down. And then she wrote like she wanted to retire her husband. Her husband was doing the same thing at the same time. And she wanted this before the end of the year. So when she wrote it, as she was working, she stayed in that place of, these are the things I wanted. She kept her eyes focused on what she wanted. So as people are in their transitioning phase and as they're doing the things, don't forget the element of dreaming. Don't forget the element of manifesting and calling things forward. And yes, you can't just do that without, doing your work. So there's definitely the work element, right? But, as they say, faith without works, right? And she got those things within a year. Like she was eating a sandwich with it from Trader Joe's, and who knew that that would go viral? And she ended up getting the $10,000 check. Now she was still driving Uber, and I'm sure there were rough spots in between, but just don't forget the dreaming part of it, because that's sometimes just that little tweak that really helps to get us over the edge, in addition to all of the, I'm going to say, traditional things that we're going to do. So don't forget that piece.
Wonderful points. Hard act to follow with all of that. The one thing, or actually a couple of things that I would add, is that I talk to clients about all the time, is make a list of those things that are important to you. Again, to Patrice's point, but also make a list of those environments, companies, work environments, and so on, where you thrive, where you do your best. And then as you're working through that transition, make sure that you're going to something, because I talk to clients about that all the time. Don't be leaving something, be going to something. And it's so much more of a motivator, and it keeps you going. Again, I think to Patrice's point, be going to something, be optimistic about what the future holds, and you'll be much more happier where you end up.
Right.
I like that, Kyle. I'm writing that down.
Yeah.
Going to something, right?
Going
Right.
to something
That's rich.
yeah,
I like that.
that's a good one. But I want to just, I mean, we were going to wrap up pretty soon. We have 5 minutes. But I want to really mention what you said, something about knowing your why, right? Realistically speaking, 80% of people transition because of finances. That's their why.
Yeah.
Realistically speaking, right? It's the money. They want a better life. They want to be able to travel, do nice things, all of those things, right? And so that's their why, and it's a valid why, because everyone deserves to live a good life and enjoy the finer things of life. And so when passion is not in place, the love of what you're doing is not in place, right? You're literally transitioning into a job because that job is going to pay you 6, 7 figures, but you don't necessarily love it. How do you manage that?
I think
Great
in spaces
question.
like this, right? Spaces like this where you have like-minded people that you can be like, listen, if they say one more thing to me, I am picking up my bag, and you're going to say, no, Patrice, remember, you have those kids in college and you
That's
need to
right.
keep a roof over your head. So I think it's balance is what I'm getting to, right? It's like, yes, like we're not working for Birkins and summer houses. We're working to keep a roof over our head, for example. So I think it's keeping that sense of community, like-minded community, with people that are aspirational like yourself, that not only can dream with you, but also help to ground you in those moments that you're like, you know what? Forget it. I'm out of here. You know what I mean? So I think
Yes.
you need that balance. Because I think the higher you climb, the harder it gets. Not, at least that's been my experience. Let me just say that. So you increase the level of support, you know what I mean, in doing things like this and meeting you guys. And Alicia, as you said, I consider all of you. I have 4 more friends right now.
Right.
You know,
Mm,
so you have to be ready to do that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, actually, there's nothing wrong with wanting more money.
Mhm.
It depends on what you do with it, right? And I guess the question I might pose back is to ask, so what happens when you've achieved that? What next? What happens afterwards, right? What do you want to do with that? You've got now the status, you've got perhaps the finance. What exactly are you going to be achieving next? Because a lot of people, I think, once they've achieved that, they forget about the dreams. And I think it's really important to tap into what you want to do, and also, who are you passionate in serving? And I think answering those questions is really important.
Good point.
Yeah, I would say I tend to try to direct people to a different thought process. Money gonna come, but you got to be happy doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I need you to understand, just like you said, an interview is a two-way street, right? I need you to understand that your life is a two-way street as well. So yeah, we know money makes the world go round, but who wants to be bored, upset, disgruntled, doing something that we're really just not involved with, like mentally? Like I have to feel it in order for me to give it my all. So yeah, 6 figures look good until you file your taxes. Okay. But I just want to put that out there to make sure, it's something that you can live with, that you're doing, and that you can sleep from. And, the money will come so long as you're doing and you're walking a straight and narrow.
Yes.
More
Amen.
money, more problems.
That's right.
Mm,
Higher tax bracket.
Right, right.
Yes.
Oy.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Awesome. So all great points. I love all the responses. I just want to, encourage someone out there, especially for the last point that we talked about, for those people who are transitioning because they want to be able to pay their children's school fees, have a good house, buy the finer things of life. That's good, but still stay connected to your passions, still stay connected to
Yep.
your dreams. Let that 9 to 5, 6 figure, 7 figure job help fund what
That's
you
right.
love doing so that you can keep doing it, so that you can be happy, so
Yep.
that you can live a fulfilled life, right? Because we have to do what we have to do. All right. So this has been a great conversation. I loved every bit of it. I learned a few things myself. So thank you to all of you. But as we wrap up our powerhouse statement, I want each of you to, first of all, before we go to the powerhouse statement, I want each of you to tell the audience where they can find you, where they can connect with you. You guys have dropped different perspectives, different germs, nuggets. If people want to work with you, how can they find you? So Kyle?
They can find me at hrkyle.com. So that's HRKYLE.com.
Is that on any social media platform?
Well, they can go through the web to find that,
Mhm.
or they can locate me on LinkedIn. So
Okay.
hrkyle.com. And if they do a Google search of HR Kyle, they are going to find me and a lot of different resources that I offer.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks. All right, Sammy.
So you can find me on LinkedIn if you just search for my name or type in summyyearn.com.
All right. Awesome. Alicia.
You can find me at www.aliciadbrown.com, and Alicia is spelled ALISHA, not like keys. If you're on LinkedIn, it's Alicia Brown there as well.
Awesome. Patrice.
And for me, you can look up The Career Nomad. You can look me up on LinkedIn and all social media. I'm so far the only one that's there. So The Career Nomad, there's no shame in jumping around to what you do, to where you need to go.
That's
to get
right.
what you
That's
need.
right.
So
That's right.
Yep, yep.
I definitely, you can find me there, and I'd be happy to help in any way I can.
Awesome.
Okay. Awesome. Beautiful. So going on to our powerhouse statement, I was an immigrant. We're passionate about changing immigrant stereotypes. We're changing the narrative of what it means to be an immigrant. And so I want each of you to state your name, your occupation very boldly and confidently. And either you're an immigrant or non-immigrant, stating that you are a resilient immigrant or you stand with resilient immigrants, whichever one applies. Okay. And we'll go in the same order we just did. So,
Okay.
Carol.
My name is Kyle Smith. I'm known as HR Kyle, and I'm your guide through the world of work. And I very proudly stand with resilient immigrants.
My name is Summy Young. I'm a career transition coach for multicultural people, and I'm a resilient immigrant.
Hi, my name is Alicia Brown. I am an employee relations, career, and leadership development consultant, and I extremely am proud to stand with resilient immigrants.
And I am Patrice Williams Lindo. I am the career nomad, and I proudly stand with Resilient Immigrant as well.
Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you all so much. This was great.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. This was an amazing conversation. And as Patrice said, I've gained 4 additional contacts, you guys. I'm going to be in your DMs. We're going to work together.
Mhm,
Lovely,
mhm,
yeah.
mhm.
So thank you all so much. I appreciate the time.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you
Okay.
all.
Thank you, everybody.
Lovely
Thank
to
you.
meet you.